Hello, everybody, as we enter November 1982 in the World Class Championship Wrestling Review Series. This is Scott Golden with Pro Wrestling Logic, and we do enter the first week of November 1982, November 6, 1982, for World Class. And it's a hot and heavy season here. We open with a tag team match, or a handicap match, rather. With the Samoan and Raul Castro against the Great Kabuki. Kabuki kind of been re-established as a major threat, or at least a moderate to major threat, with the Shin Breaker Crusher maneuver, which was implemented to take out one Kerry Von Erich, hopefully, at least in his mind, or in the mind of Gary Hart, permanently taking him away from being able to do battle with Ric Flair. The handicap match, while momentarily challenging for Kabuki, certainly not the challenge that he needs, as both men are allowed to be in the ring, and the martial arts prowess with leg sweeps, back kicks, crescent kicks, and various other martial arts maneuvers not sufficient enough to overwhelm Kabuki. Kabuki looks like $1 million even when things are difficult, and it is no different here. The Samoan does take over on him just a little bit, but that shin breaker, shin crusher type maneuver used by Kabuki always spinning in circles before damage is done, but that shin breaker, shin crusher used on both of the adversaries in the match, and Kabuki walks away in just over 5 minutes or so with a win. And then we see a brawl between Irwin and Bundy with the Freebirds. No official match of note. Freebirds were originally supposed to be in a match with two masked individuals, but that does not occur. Chaos occurs for several minutes. Bundy takes over, several referees out, other wrestlers out to separate Irwin and Bundy and the Freebirds. And that takes several minutes. Basically just a smudge to get people caring about things. Police officers brought into the affair as Bundy and Irwin are led away. We eventually do see a squash match as the Freebirds take on Grand Marcus number 2 and Destroyer number 1. That obviously is meant to get the Freebirds over, but I don't think it necessarily had to happen this week, as we do move into the Freebirds handling business with Irwin and Bundy, former tag team champions, and but nonetheless, the squash does happen with the Freebirds taking obvious control. Terry Gordy looks like $1 million. I think they quote him as being 325 pounds. I'd believe that's a legit weight and not just a big deal. Hayes gets in there and hits a rather effortless back suplex, but it is always Terry Gordy who's going to clean house when that needs to be done, and Gordy is still ready for more of a fight even post-match. Obviously, Gordy gets the hot tag, and it is he who makes the final maneuvers for his team to successfully navigate a victory. He's willing to take on just about anybody. I wouldn't want to imagine him in a bar fight. And again, we see that modified powerbomb looks like what they're going to do, but they instead hit a spiked pile driver to the Freebirds. Then we move into a series of interviews with Kerry Von Erich. Von Erich is weeks away from a return. I believe it is here that they first announced that it is official that in about a month or so, or about 6 weeks or so, he'll be cleared. Talking about a match for Kerry with Ric Flair, still calling Kerry the uncrowned champion, and many people would understand why. But, Bill Mercer talking to him, and Kerry not willing to back down, says that he wants Flair. Flair says that he's not responsible for the bounty. It's unfortunate that Kerry does a lot of complaining and whining, etc., and so forth, but that this is not Flair's problem. He'll be there when Kerry's ready, but at the same time, he'll still be the champion and a better man than Kerry could ever be. I will say the build of a feud between Flair and Kerry, which goes, now almost the majority of the year of 1982, with them only meeting one or two times, is the right way to build a championship program, because, I can't imagine living in Texas at the time, being a wrestling fan, and not desperately wanting to know what happens between the two. So that's how you fill a stadium or whatever you want to do. Al Madrill and Bugsy McGraw against the Checkmate and Magic Dragon, your, I guess you'd say, semi-main event tag team combination here. We've seen these four in various combinations before. Honestly, just a filler match. There's no real implications. The one thing I think Von Erich, or the territory, lacks is, at least to some degree, some form of movement towards, having number one contenders matches, or something to where that what happens in matches matters. Bugsy McGraw, caught off guard by the armadillo fold up of the Checkmate, as is to be expected. He does eventually figure out that you just beat the tar out of the guy until he rolls away, but that takes a minute. Checkmate goes to the outside, does not like dealing with McGraw. McGraw is a fellow who obviously has a good bit of experience. Tags off to Madrill. Madrill comes in and handles things. Then there's a switch on the other side, and Dragon and Madrill do a good bit of damage to each other. The Dragon, still the apprentice of Kabuki, still in a position where he is protected enough, but if there's someone that needs to take a fall, he can do it. He and Madrill are adversarial and toe-to-toe for the next several minutes of this contest. I think that's pretty on purpose. Then we see the Checkmate get back in. Checkmate usually brought in when we want to finish things. A slingshot into the corner by the Checkmate, where Madrill catches a chop. Madrill taking a good bit of punishment during the middle portion of the match, and one would have to think that Madrill is close to done by the midpoint. Bugsy, though, does get a hot tag, comes in, House of Fire. Lots of punches, lots of speed, lots of crowd interaction, as he's wont to do. Atomic drop out of nowhere, and quickly tags back to Madrill. Don't really know much about the logic of that in a wrestling sense, but the team of McGraw and Madrill do end up getting things going back in their direction, and they do a do-si-do and nail both of their adversaries down in a heap before sending the partners together, who do-si-do, and they get nailed again. So obviously something right about the way they're handling the affair. And then we move on to Madrill hitting that flying shoulder tackle, and he comes back but misses a second attempt at it, hits the buckle, and it is the Magic Dragon who makes his way to the top, but runs right into a shot from Bugsy McGraw. Madrill heads to the top here and hits a high cross body for the 1, 2, and 3 count. So Madrill and McGraw are your victors in this semi-main event tag team affair. We then move to our main event, which is Kevin Von Erich against Wild Bill Irwin. They don't have. They've got a little under 10 minutes to go here. Obviously, you know, or Kevin is no stranger to being in there with Irwin, but he, you know, has a very basic match here. One thing I like about World Class and Always Do is the autographs signed in the ring before the matches. That's kind of cool. Very basic match. Breakdown is simple. Kevin is, the more agile of the two, up with head scissors and arm bars, arm drags, and the like. Irwin repeatedly shows his adeptness at being able to lead a oftentimes overexcited Von Erich, whichever Von Erich, through a match that looks like $1,000,000, and I think there's an underestimation of the value of that skill set, certainly in Texas, where the Von Erichs were pretty untouchable. And then we see Kevin, with really exaggerated shots, be they forearm shots or elbows or whatever have you. He's always very intense. Back to the head scissors takeover, but gets dumped against the ropes by Irwin, and Irwin not afraid to break things down, and then we see an abdominal stretch out of nowhere, made famous by Wilbur Snyder, but Kevin uses it here to try and get the victory with a few minutes left. That does not lead to anything but a miscue with the referee, which is not something that they want there. Referee goes down, and this eventually leads to a disqualification, as Wild Bill also, after sending the referee down, sends Kevin over the top rope, which is a disqualification, and that is the end of that program. So we go to the middle of November, just weeks away from Kerry Von Erich and Ric Flair in a cage, but that's coming, and it's coming fast. So continue to join us. Keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.